Rev up your engines! The workers at the GM Mexican Celaya plant are fighting to change their union. Why do you think they're making things in Mexico? Because it's cheaper. The United States, they're making $18 to $32 per hour. They're paying the Mexicans less than $25 a day. These are the workers. They'll always lie with their figures, these companies. They'll say, well, our average employee makes blah, blah. And then they include the president who's making $20 million a year or something and average it out. The actual workers are making less than $25 a day. And they're saying that it's not. What they're getting paid isn't fair, that the health stuff with coronavirus they're forcing people isn't fair. Now, the union that they have today is called the CTM. And they're telling the workers, this is their own union. GM will leave Mexico if they don't agree with this agreement. The supposed collective bargaining, right? Yeah, GM's going to leave Mexico. They invested all this money so they can make cars cheaper. And then they're just going to walk out and leave. Ha ha! If they're paying workers less than $25 a day, they pay the American workers more than $25 an hour on average. They're not going to be leaving Mexico anytime soon. So it sure looks like their union is in cahoots with GM. Mexico's not the most democratic place. There's so much corruption going on there. I'm sure the ties between GM and the supposed union heads are pretty tight there. They're saying, well, they'll leave the country if we don't blah, blah. Just like here in the United States where owner of the football team will say, if you don't build us a new stadium, we'll leave and go somewhere else. I'd like to find a place where GM can pay people that kind of low wages and still make stuff. That's a bunch of nonsense. They're not leaving. It's cheap labor. That's all they want. And of course, GM plays their party line, and I quote, GM said it respects and supports the rights of our employees to make a personal, free, secret, and direct response in regards to union representation. Of course, they give a line of political BS. They're just done it because it's cheaper. Now they're starting to revolt, saying, hey, we can't live on this stuff. There's not enough money for us. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that one. They're even complaining down in Mexico about them now, not just in the United States. Steve06 says, Scotty, I'm thinking about buying an '06 Impala SS with a 5.3-liter V8. What do you think of its longevity of the engine? That's a pretty good engine. That's the V8 engine. They can last a long time. The V6 and 4-cylinder Impalas that age are garbage. They're absolute trash. If it's in good shape, it could be a fun car to have, and it might appreciate 16 years old, and eventually it could become a classic. Who knows? Could be a fun car to buy. It's not that expensive now. Maybe in the future they'll go up in value. Jack Ryan says, Scotty, my thermostat is stuck on C and a coolant's leaking. What should I do? If it's stuck on C, it's stuck wide open. So first, replace the thermostat. Now, generally, though, that has nothing to do with coolant leaking. If anything, it won't leak at all because it's cold, right? Pressure test it. Find out where the leaks are. A lot of times the water pumps leak. Sometimes the radiators, they're plastic, and where the seams are leak. Get it pressure tested, find the leak, and fix the leak. You definitely need a new thermostat, but that's not going to fix a leak. When they're open, they don't leak at all. They're just internally open. Luis Guzman Jr. says, what are your thoughts on a Chrysler Sebring 2010? Okay, probably one of the worst cars ever made. Those Chrysler Sebrings, oh man, I've had customers with them. They ended up hating the cars, had nothing but problems with them. Head gaskets blow, the transmissions would go out. They're nice looking cars, but man, they're horrendous cars to keep over a long time. They're one of the worst cars Chrysler ever made. I had a customer with one. He said, this is it. I'm never going to buy another Chrysler product. He had tons of stuff under warranty fixed, but of course they never fixed it right. And then it was out of warranty. The transmission went out. Rolling piles of junk. Nonex says, Scotty, what do you think of a GM 3.6-liter V6 Holden Commodores? Are they reliable or are the transmissions too unreliable? Okay, they were made in Australia. Holden's bankrupt now. It doesn't exist anymore either. The engines did have a tendency of blowing head gaskets if they were pushed. The thing about the Holden Commodores are, you really want the V8 ones. They're becoming more of a collector's items. The V6s are basically worth nothing here in the United States. They're underpowered, the transmissions are weak, the engines blow head gaskets over time. Nobody wants the V6s. They all want the V8s. I wouldn't buy one. I don't like the body style myself anyways. It's just a Pontiac body style, you know. It doesn't impress me. But the V8s are fun to drive. Some friends around here that have them, and they are fun to drive around. But the V6s, they're dogs, and the engines don't hold up. Neither do the transmissions. I'd pass on that. BK Harold says, what do you think of the Toyota Supra 2021? The 3-liter, a good deal among sports? It has nothing to do with Toyota. It's a BMW Roadster. They make very good 3-liter straight 6-cylinder engines. There's no arguing that. I had a customer with the BMW version, and his 2 turbochargers went out. It was over $9,000 to replace them both. You're getting a zippy little sports car. It's not a race car. Corvette would blow it off the road. They're not all that fast. They're BMWs. If you don't mind the expense of a BMW, they're all made by BMW. They're not made by Toyota. Toyota has nothing to do with building the things. They have input on what they want to put on them, but they're all built in a BMW factory. I'm not a fan of BMW. They don't hold up over time. You pay a lot of money when they're 10 years old, they're worth nothing. But then again, it says Toyota Supra, so they'll probably be worth some money in the future. But they're not Toyotas. I'm not a fan of BMW cars because I fix them. I know what a pain in the butt they are when they break. All that plastic crap cracks and rots when they get to be 6, 7, 8 years old and cost a fortune to fix them. Jan Dolezal says, Scotty, why do you no longer say Subaru Boxers are crap? It's a big company, Fuji Heavy Industries, that makes them. They've figured out their 4-cylinder boxer engines. They found out what kind of material to make the head gaskets out of so they don't blow head gaskets. But, it's a gigantic but, I would still not buy a 6-cylinder Subaru Boxer. The 4s are fine, but the 6s, they're over-engineered, they have bad valves, they make noise as they age. All my customers that had Subarus with 6-cylinder engines, they said, I'll never buy another Subaru. The engine started coming apart at 65,000 miles. They're 6s still. But they're 4-cylinder ones? No, they're decent. Just don't overstress. I mean, you buy one, you put a supercharger or a turbo, eventually it's going to wear out a lot faster that way. But the conventional ones? No, they're pretty reliable. They used to be a long time ago, too. When they first started importing them in the United States, they were good cars, but then they started making them bigger and faster and had a lot of problems. Well, if you've ever had unwanted guests in your car, well, there's a guy in Colorado who's got you beat. A bear spent an hour trapped inside his car. It took a sheriff and a wildlife officer an hour to get this bear out of the guy's car. What was the bear doing in the car? Well, it turns out the guy left a case of beer in the back seat. Now, the officer that got it out said that case of beer, it was all cans, was all mangled, but it didn't appear as if the bear had gotten any of them opened. I guess bears don't know anything about flip tops, you know, it was a little bit too much technology for a bear. Although I'm sure they could have bitten through it if they really wanted to and drank it that way, like the teenagers that are, you know, chugging the things down. Now, this is a relatively common thing in Colorado, maybe not with beer, but they have 484 vehicle break-ins by bears every year there. So if there's anything that smells of food, something that they want, they'll break in. Now, of course, it destroyed the inside of the guy's car. There wasn't much left of it. If you're going camping anywhere, believe me, you need to put your food somewhere else. Or, you know, don't even bring any. Buy it wherever you're going and then throw it in the bear-proof garbage cans where you are. Don't leave any food in your car that bears can smell, because they will come after it. That's what bears do. Whether the bear was sober or drunk when he left, they just got him off and put him back into the wild and he ran away. Maybe he was mad because he couldn't figure out how to open the beer cans. Maybe they should make beer cans that bears can open more easily so they don't have these problems. He wouldn't have been there an hour. He would have had a couple drinks and left. But it's a serious warning, you know, don't leave any food in your car. If you're going in a bear country, not even in the trunk, they can smell it and they'll try to break in and rip things open. I've seen it happen to people in Canada and the north. When they're in the woods, you don't want to have food lying around where there's bears. Rudy Getz, would a drain and fill on a radiator be sufficient for a change of a 17 Honda Accord 4-cylinder? Should I drain and fill 2 or 3 times with some driving in between? Love the podcast. All right, realize that's a Honda with modern coolant. Okay, that coolant is good for 7 years and over 100,000 miles. You might not even need to do it yet. If you do, there's such good coolant that what you could do is warm up the vehicle, then drain the radiator with the petcock on the bottom, do it once and fill it up. There'll be a little bit left, but it won't mean anything because all the stuff that's in the new coolant will definitely make the old coolant work fine. You really don't have to worry. You probably don't even need to do it though, because that uses modern organic acid stuff. That can go 7 years, 150,000 miles. You probably don't even need to change it yet. It's not like the old green stuff when I was young you had to change every 3 years. It goes a lot longer. Will greasable aftermarket anti-sway bar links hold up longer than sealed OEM? How often should they be greased? Well, of course they will. If you get something that's greasable, you're adding grease. And what we used to do when I was a young mechanic was, when you got your oil and filter changed, we mechanics would grease the whole car. So every time you change your engine oil and filter, you could grease it. It takes 2 seconds to do, and then basically the stuff can last forever. It will outlast the OEM stuff because you're greasing it. If you remember the video I made a few months ago in Rhode Island, I had one of those Austin 7s bearing for the radiator fan. Had a grease fitting. You could even grease those back in the day. And look at that thing. It was made in the 1930s and it still works because you grease it. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.